Well, hello there, friends. And a special hello to Meg, who's here watching live with me, lending some of that energy. I'm doing this very impromptu video on the Friday before the Uranus Jupiter conjunction. And I'm sitting in the space of finding very few words to describe everything that's moving and grooving and shaking and blossoming. And also just felt really called, of course, to share something on video. And it's been a couple weeks since I posted a new video here on YouTube, so it's nice to do it in this moment in time. It is a such a fruitful week, and there's also a lot of stuff going on. I was writing in my newsletter community today, which, by the way, there's a link in the description if you want to join the newsletter and also have access to this free course I created called Elemental Magic, which is really beautiful. But I was sharing with my newsletter today that, all these sparks of beautiful things, and then at the same time that we're holding so much heaviness. There's so much heaviness in the world. There's so much unrest. There's so much pain. There's just a lot. And I find it's always this sort of juxtaposition, this paradox state that we can have. We have the ability to have those exchanges and conversations and sit in moments like this where we're just tapping into our magic and tapping into what's happening astrologically and having a wonderful time doing it. And also, it's it's a challenge to look around the world and feel everything that's going on. But what I was sharing is that what I know in my bones to be very, very true is that in these moments, filling your own, filling yourself, right? Filling your cup and then pouring from that is the medicine that the world needs. And so we might have this experience of having a lot of, feelings that collide with each other. It's jarring. It's hard to reconcile to be in a state of, we're talking about optimism and hope and the beginning of Taurus season, which is why I symbolically wanted to do this today. Taurus season is just a beautiful time of the all the seeds that we've been planting and all the things we sparked into action in Aries season, whether we know them or we don't know them yet, they begin to take root. And because we have this really powerful Uranus Jupiter meeting in the sky tomorrow, it is the most potent astrological pulse point this year, truly. And we just came out of this eclipse, and then now we're starting Taurus season, and we have this full moon in Scorpio in a couple days time, and Tuesday. It's a time that it's sort of like out of time. It's a time that feels like we're just kind of floating, but also very grounded, which is the incredible power. Hi, Tasha, I see you. The incredible power of being, and and breathing at this time. And so let us anchor into what helps us radiate. This is a moment in time when you might feel a lot of the filters. It's a couple things. You might feel a lot of like tightness around wanting to reveal a new part of you, a new dimension of you, a freer, more authentic, raw self. And then we come up with all the perceived barriers that we have to move through to get to that state. And that's all normal and part of our process. You might be feeling that. And if you are, I see you, honor it, sit with it, don't push it away, just be with the feeling. The more we find the rhythm of being with what comes up and getting curious about it, the more healing we will gain from those moments in time. And the other thing that may be happening is that you're feeling like a lot of the layers and filters and sort of identity markers that may have previously defined who you are kind of falling away. Sometimes in nuanced ways and sometimes in very abrupt ways. And you're feeling into different breakthrough of your own identity and your sense of self. And may this be a space where you can continue to give that room to grow, to pause here and to create and to give it room to grow. And I say create because I want us to be in a creative activity during this time together, um, sharing this space. So I'm going to be working on a candle. One of my favorite things to do is work with these pillar candles. This one is from the dollar store. They're always, very affordable. And I'm going to decorate this one with some stickers that I printed out. And pretty much all of the stickers and items that I'm using are from the various mood boards that I've created for my Patreon community. This is the newest one. It's a Jupiter Uranus. I call it Mystery Moods. And I created this over this week, finished it yesterday, and just had a lot of fun tapping into the symbolism and the themes and just giving you some images to play with that hopefully inspire new perspectives and inspire delight and inspiration and all that. And then I also have a bunch of other images um, that I've printed out, and pretty much all of these, are from those different mood boards, and also from my elemental magic course. I have mood boards for each of the elements. So like, these feathers, and I print these out on a clear sticker sheet, clear so that I can put them on the candle, and then, you can still see the see it shining bright. The last time I did this was before the eclipse. I made a whole other beautiful candle that I worked with, and I had a really good time after it had burned down completely. I held it for a few days. I did a ceremony where other people did one of their own. And then I was like, what do I do with it? Because ultimately, we want to clear out, we want to like honor the fact that that energy's already been worked, right? And so I remember the day that the trash was going to come, I had already pulled the bin out to the sidewalk. And I was like, I want to, get rid of the candle and do it in a way that's everything is intentional. It can be quick, but it's very intentional. And I was like, and I had this feeling about like breaking it on the side of the road. And it was just this like, it is done. And so I found a spot that was safe to break the break the glass, and thankfully it didn't like shatter everywhere. And I picked up the pieces and I threw them in the trash, and that was it. But that act of doing that was also an act of magic, and it felt very potent. Just giving you an anecdote of what it means to walk in magic all the time and follow that instinctual self that wants to, do things. And sometimes we're so afraid of all the repercussions of doing something or being a certain way that it's like, it's a shame. So I encourage you to take up an intuitive creative project of your own. So what could that look like? Anything. Grab your journal and draw. Maybe you have a creative project you've already been working on that you want to continue. Also, just feel free to listen while you're doing, going about your day, and just receive, right? So this Uranus and Jupiter moment in time, the word breakthrough is what really comes up massive, like big neon letters in the sky. Ow, as I cut myself with the scissors. Isn't that great? Symbolism everywhere. So breakthrough, and this idea of, and I've been speaking about this in my different communities, workshops, newsletter, clients, everywhere, about me feeling into a new dawn breaks. Like that is what this moment in time is representing, to the point where when I tap into and feel into what happens after, it's hard for me to pick up the threads. The way I intuitively channel is I'm just always, I call it liminal listening. I also have this new term I say called the visceral voice, this like thing, right? So the way is I pick up a lot of what I would describe as maybe potential future threads or themes. So things that are revealed in terms of how it will feel like, maybe look like, feel like. And this is certainly a time of that. It's like a new dawn breaks. And the keyword breaks is important because there's something that's breaking in order for new things to emerge. And it's interesting now because what's coming up is, where have you reached a breaking point perhaps that feels very intense for you, a breaking point that's kind of tipping you over the edge of creating a new declaration in your life, a new a new way of being that you want to give birth to. Uranus and Jupiter are both forward looking planets and archetypes. They are, Jupiter, let's take them individually. And then what happens in the conjunction essentially is they form like one super archetype. So let's look at them individually. Uh, Jupiter is the largest planet in the solar system. It's a planet of faith. It's a planet of, um, faith and faith building. And also he inspires us to have faith in ourselves, enough faith in ourselves. And then he's like, all right, and we can work together, but you must have faith. So one of the good questions to ask, and I learned this from one of my astrology teachers, is, where am I lacking faith in myself? Is a great question to sit with. Where am I lacking faith in myself? And the answers, we don't want them to come from a place of judging ourselves or putting ourselves down, because when we do that, we just cut off the energy. So again, we breathe and open up with curiosity. Where am I lacking faith in myself? Wherever you're feeling that instinctually, there's probably a moment there where you can take a leap, where you can kind of push that envelope a little bit. Think about being bold in whatever theme and sector that is for you, to create a symbolic like break there in that paradigm of where you don't have faith in yourself. And then Jupiter says, have faith and I will help you expand. Wherever you have Jupiter in your chart, that's a big marker of that in your own natal chart. And then wherever Jupiter is transiting right now and creating this conjunction, look it up on your chart for sure. What is the house? And that theme of your life is getting blown up in the best way. It's getting like reset. There's a reset, almost as if a computer, you unplugged it and then you plug it back in and then it boots up again. And there's new software, and there's an upgrade that's imminent there. And it requires you to also have the leaning in and the willingness for it to happen and for it to take place. Jupiter is big and bountiful. Jupiter loves adventure. Jupiter expands us. And again, it's this planet of like, yes, like all caps. Yes, let's go, let's do it. And then Uranus, let's look at that archetype. Uranus is a planet of rebellion, freedom. He's a great awakener. Uranus seeks to take you from your conditioned self to your essence, to your true nature, your essential nature. Uranus energy is not one that we can like rationally understand. Sure, we can describe what he's up to, but it's so much more than that. It's really this higher mind, higher octave of the mind, which is why this conjunction and this transit in the sky is so potent, because it is like dialing up our consciousness in a new way. I've heard it described really beautifully as, imagine all the things that you're seeing normally, sort of with your current perception, with your current interacting with the world, with the mind that you have right now. And this gives you like, it just dials it, where all of a sudden things just feel like there's a shift. And sort of, looking at this conjunction tomorrow, going like, okay, well, it's going to happen and what's going to feel like. And it's like, we just want these like fast things. We've got to hold this sense of wonder and awe and reverence about how these transits impact our life in big, big, big cycles. We're talking about big cycles here. We're talking about 13, 14 years from this point forward, where there's a seed being planted here that will undoubtedly impact your life, especially if you're, if you're thirsty for this kind of insight. It's coming. It's like your soul is already dialed in to receiving that. So consider it a green light. Like your soul already is like, yes, if you're watching this, if you're interacting with this, if you're feeling it, if you've watched any other content, then you've looked it up and you've been curious about it, just see that as a green light from your soul to already be like, I'm dialed in and I'm ready for it. And then what's interesting is, and this is where I'll bring in one of my core mantras, is the I know I go. I know, like capital K, like I know, right? So place the trust that your soul has already given you that green light. There's that no. And then there's a gap typically between I know and I go. And that's the gap that we want to shorten. That's the gap that we want to have the courage. That's where our courage and our willingness comes in, so that we receive that green light. You got it. Your soul has given it to you already. Check, done. Then it takes you bringing things into form to actually create that kinetic energy that brings it into the go. So a good way to test that is the things that right now you might be a little fearful of doing or making happen. Sit with those. There's probably a good spark plug there that's going to move you in the right direction. The things that you feel that you're ready to release, but maybe have been holding on to, metaphorically, symbolically, or physically, objects and relationships. And when I say relationships, it's not just about, cutting relationships left and right. There's a lot of reimagining and recalibrating around relationships. There's a stagnancy that we've grown accustomed to when it comes to relationships. We don't go deeper and we don't go further. So wherever we've gotten stagnant, there may be an opportunity to reimagine that relationship, to allow it to be reborn. And some relationships maybe won't make it throughout this period, and that's perfectly normal and fine. And each of us will have our own path. And then as we have our path, everybody else has theirs. So we're kind of bumping into each other, learning the things we're learning. It's a very transformative process, which requires a lot of patience and grace. But there's a lot of that recalibration going on, reimagining, which is also very Uranian and Jupiterian. They're visionary. They have this rebellious visionary energy when they're combined together. They want to see the new horizons ahead. They want to open up space for it. And if you're feeling right now like, sort of a pressure to decide on a goal or something you want to make happen, or like how to use this, and you're like, well, what do I do? Take a breath and step back and just widen your gaze. One of the most important ways that we can really amplify the effect of this conjunction in our lives is actually to surrender and to let go and to empty ourselves out of expectations, which is a practice in and of itself. The practice of surrendering, the practice of not attaching, the practice of not attaching ourselves to expectations, interpretations. And one of the things that I've counseled a couple of my clients in one-on-one sessions this week that I'll share with you guys is to come up, and this I think is a wondrous exercise, very simple to do this weekend, is think about the word emergence. Emergence, like what is emerging? And write down a list of two columns. The first, you're going to write a list of the things that you want to consciously bring into your life, like the things that you want to emerge, right? So dreams, goals, it's sort of the things that you're thinking about, that you want to create, that you want to work towards, that you aspire to, that you're conscious of. That's one list. And then you're going to write another column after that basically is what emergence actually wants to greet me. And this is in the realm of the unconscious. So after we've sort of dumped all of the things that we know, right? That we're like, okay, yeah, I want to do this. That's in the realm of the do and the aspirations and the things we want to create. Then allow some space. And some good ways to do that is set a timer, 10, 11 minutes, and do some automatic writing. Like what wants to emerge? And you just write, you don't stop, and just write without editing. And just see what might emerge. Just see what comes up. Just allow it to to flower from a place that's beyond your conscious mind. Maybe you want to pull some cards around that. In my Patreon community this week, I've been doing all these prompts day by day where I'm talking about just basically sparking new ideas and new ways to think about things and to tap into our power and tap into our magic, and prompts where you go to your decks. I'm looking around. I don't have a deck with me right now. I have them everywhere, but not right here. But you go to one of your decks, Oracle deck, Tarot deck, anyone, and you ask questions that are more sort of open-ended. You the questions that I've designed very consciously every time I do them, they're meant to be open-ended. They're meant to be really based in this space of discovery. And I don't know. I don't know. And that's okay. And I welcome the not knowing. I welcome that part. So, let's do this. If there's anybody who's watching, and I want to say hi to Marina. I have a couple ladies here. As I was saying earlier in the recording, I wanted to do this live to feel into to connect with the energy of other incredible people. I'm going to start working on my candle here, and I'll keep chatting. But if there's any questions, just put them in the comments, or observations, or anything that comes up for you guys. Feel free to share, and I'll capture that. We'll create this together. Candle magic, let's talk about that, is really wonderful because it's simple, it's super accessible. Whether you have an altar at home, I have a couple of spaces that I've designated as my altar, magical workings, and I highly recommend, if you're into this stuff, to have yours. But whether you have an altar space or not, candle magic is very easy to weave into your life. And here I'm placing my first stickers. This is the image I shared today. I've been making these collages that I'm like in love with. I'm also I want you to see, I'm also including images of myself with this candle. This is one that I made with this AI program. And this is a collage I made earlier this week. Things that inspire me, and things that both ground me and also like elevate and grow me, that I'm like, that so if there's anything like that is around you, perhaps somebody that and in the it could be a singer. I have a singer. I say that because I have a singer here that I recently discovered who really inspires me. Her name is Sarah Farrell, and she's somebody who just lives this beautifully unapologetic, like creative. Her spirit is just, her music is incredible, and it captivated me and it moved me so deeply when I discovered her just a couple weeks ago. And the timing was absolutely divine, of course. And I'm like, wow. So this candle, or this creative project, whatever you choose to do, and maybe you want to do a candle over the weekend. There's my face. I love that picture. This candle is for you to light up and declare the openness that you have for how you want to grow during this time, curiosity, the sparks of wonder, and to really create a ritual out of what wants to move in your life. I've said as well that I have a lot of excitement for this conjunction, and also I hold a lot of reverence for it. It's like both energies, both the excitement of, wow, something really big is happening here, and it feels, yeah. And if you're like, I'm not feeling anything, don't stress about that. Don't stress about it. If you're called to work with the energy, just do it, and then just you're open to it, and that's all you need to do. You don't need to share the same, like, oh my god. If you're not feeling it, then it doesn't mean, well, you're here and you're watching this, so hello, welcome to the club of those of us who are feeling it. But my point is that let's not expect some big monumental, walking in magic is not some big monumental, like, oh my god, it all changed all of a sudden and that was that and da, da, da. No, it's just that's not how it works. Sometimes we'll have those big aha moments, but most of the time it's just subtle things that creep into your life, and then you go from one state into I will never be the same again. And the more you attune to walking in your own magic, the more you will be able to perceive those moments and to discern and to really trust that intuitive um, movement that brings you forward. And allow me to bring in also the connection with nature, because this then brings up a whole conversation around, okay, so Uranus and Jupiter are meeting in the sky. Great. This bold, visionary, forward looking energy. New dawn breaks. Uranus is all about lightning bolts. It's lightning bolts. Where is it happening? It's happening in Taurus. Taurus, the second sign of the zodiac. We're starting Taurus season today. Aries season is the very first sign, and Aries, it's the sign of I am, the spark, this like door opener, the spark that it ignites. So imagine this ignition point, and then Taurus begins to like anchor it in, begins to go, okay, great. So let's start to create the roots so that ignition, that spark, that new light can actually take hold. Taurus represents resources, our values, like our true values, what we see as foundational. It represents beauty. It represents, let's see, Tasha says, you mentioned nature, and my cycle of photos brings up one of my local ravens. Oh, beautiful. Yeah, like pay attention to all of that. Pay attention to all of that and don't get attached to any of it also. That's the creatrix way. You are constantly paying attention, but you're not getting tied down or bogged down. Because then we can, and I'm not saying you specifically, Tasha, I'm just saying like this is something I've noticed is when you keep that channel open, then more will come through. And it just keeps kind of like bubbling up. So just when we're working with symbology and all that stuff, it's something I remind myself of often. So Taurus is ruled by Venus, and Venus has been, also has her own marvelous story that I recommend you all tap into in your own chart, understanding where Venus is natally and where she's transiting, because there's a lot of potent energy and magic there around your sense of self-worth, your inner peace, your harmony, and your expression in life, like how you hold yourself and how you move through life, because you then inherently see yourself as so worthy that a lot of the things that used to get you caught up, specifically when it comes to how other people perceive you, just wash away. And the perceptions of other people, pretty much the bulk of the things that stop us have to do with that. Any fear that we have of sharing, any fear that we have of revealing our true self, of just, and there's so much freedom in that, which is, again, this Uranian energy grounded in Taurus, the freedom to express who you are. Taurus is connected to the throat. So to voice who you are. Taurus is, of course, nature. And the picture I like to paint, Tasha says, ravens are movement of energy, no getting too set on time. Absolutely. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. I love it. The image I always like to paint for Taurus is the bull, the, humble, powerful bull in a field, maybe under a nice little tree, and he's munching on grass and just existing. And you could feel, his breath and his power, just like, and that's it. It's like, you know who you are, and you feel this connection, hooves to earth and breeze running, through your fur. And it's just that. And it's a challenging energy sometimes to tap into, because we've been conditioned to constantly have this swirl of other things that create this just noise and more noise and more noise. Taurus wants to bring us back into the essence, the raw self, the wild, savage nature of who we are. And so that is getting ignited right now, literally, with Jupiter and Uranus in that sign. Ignited. So any signs that you have of that unrest, like, if you're a plant that's been in a pot and the pot is just too small, it's too small. You need to like replant yourself. And the replanting is like this wild, like I want to plant myself in a space where I have room to grow. And because while we're walking in our magic, we are also walking in this real world where we are doing all the things we do. We are partners and mothers and, uh, you know, parents and children and friends, and we're taking care of people around us. We have jobs, we have bills to pay. I mentioned at the top of this the crazy intensity of the world right now. So all this stuff is happening, and it's like, great. Well, how do I move myself out of this pot I'm root bound? You know that term when if you're a gardener and into plants, root bound, where it's like the roots have no more room to grow. A lot of us have gotten root bound. And so that spark comes in to basically shatter. Imagine it's a clay pot, shatter it. And then what happens? Oh, no more pot. Well, you get to replant yourself somewhere, a new garden. And if in your mind right now you're coming up with all the list of limitations or reasons why that can't happen, I'm not saying, don't worry about it, it's going to be great. I'm saying, okay, yes, I hear you loud and clear. Yes. And then you get to find the ways to do that in the circumstances that you currently have. You don't wait, you create. So you create something that expands your energy. You do it because you desire it enough to do it. You do it because the call of your inner wild, of your inner creatrix, of this sovereign being that lies within you that wants to it's already loud enough for you to do it. And to look up and go like, oh, and not get bogged down by the stories or the paradigms of like, oh, but I've got all of these things, and what if I wait? And then comes the challenge that a lot of us have, where when we want to take a step in a certain direction, we see the big project, and it overwhelms us. Whether it's something we want to create or something we want to shift in us, or we tend to get caught up in the final product, and that's exciting, right? But then we may not even begin or take any step forward because we're like, oh, it's too big. So a good way to sort of shift that energy a little bit, this is another list you can write, by the way, it's a very interactive class, is think about the thing that you've been wanting to create, right? And then write a list of how will that make you feel? Because ultimately, the things we want have more to do with how we want them to make us feel. And that list then is powerful information, because then you can go, oh, okay, I want to feel like this. How can I get closer to that feeling with the resources I have right now? And that's also very Taurus. It's like, what do I have that's what I really need? So challenge yourself to go from, oh, I need to acquire this or get this or do that, or to what do I have that's right here that I can actually like alchemize the feeling of what it is that I desire. So, oh, I desire freedom. I desire to feel, um, all the things we desire feeling. And then just move yourself into, what is that? How can I create that with what I have? And then, and make it happen, because the feeling has nothing to do with like whether it's acquiring something or creating something, or, again, or shifting something in your person that's more, not a physical thing, but something that's mental, or it's, there's a feeling tied to it. And speaking of mental, I can't not acknowledge our mental health, and the fact that sometimes we find ourselves in situations where our mental health is feeling really, really challenged. That's also been a part of my life. And so honor that and care for that, and find the ways to hopefully alleviate that very real pain, so that you can then create from that point. Because if that's what you're happening, if what's happening, if you're dealing with depression, anxiety, right now, then I just want to honor that, because like I said, it's also part of my journey. I'm looking for somewhere to place this quill that is so beautiful. Um, what else? There's so many things to so many things to unpack and to reveal and to share. Um, I definitely, like I was saying, I recommend that you look at your chart to see where it's happening, and to be open to the messages and the discoveries, um, and, and to do it in tangible ways. This is also part of the Taurus energy. The Uranus energy is like much more shamanic. It's intangible, but the Taurus energy is very tangible. So what does that say to me when I weave that story together? I go, okay, well, how can I create tangible experiences to connect with the intangible and the ethereal? And this is where, the invitation today to actually use your hands to create something is really potent, because then we're grounding in the energy. And as you're creating something, you are in this process of, perhaps just this feeling into this slowing down, and doing it very intuitively. I'm just placing things here as I go, and um, but tangible. Write it down, connect with nature, um, listen to music, feel into it, feel into it, and give yourself permission to feel into it. Give yourself permission to experience the whole spectrum of emotions that come through. One of the things that I talk about often is also this idea that we're always, and this used to be my experience, that we're shifting gears between sort of our regular self, our spiritual self, our creative self, and we're kind of shifting gears. And there's a big part of that happens naturally in life, right? Because like right now, I'm here with you, I'm making this candle, and later on I have to like metaphorically switch gears into caring for my husband, you know, giving my son, whatever he needs. That's what I'm doing all the time. But I used to feel much more compartmentalized. And I think that's something that as I've worked on in my own path of, my own walking and my own discovery process, I've alleviated that considerably, and it feels really great. But I think I bring that up because I really do believe that that's one of the gifts that we might be receiving when we're working with this particular conjunction, is to not feel such a stark contrast between um, our different selves. So not to have to shift gears so much, and that, to bring sort of a cohesion to all of the different ways that we feel. I hope that makes sense. Um, I hope that's making sense. But I think that's one of the gifts that is really possible and available to us, which feels really exciting, because it's a whole new way to interpret what we're experiencing. And that's what these two planets in Taurus want us to do. They want us to experience ourselves in a whole new way, to honor ourselves in a whole new way, to radiate, to emerge, this again with this emergence, and to have the optimism. They're inherently very optimistic and forward thinking, as I was saying. Jupiter specifically is incredibly optimistic and hopeful. And so to to cultivate that optimism, to cultivate that sense of, looking above, beyond what currently exists, not because we're covering it, not because we're turning away from it. Let's look at it, let's be with it, but because we're expanding our energetic space to see that, but also to see beyond what's currently here. So cultivating that sense of optimism, um, dialing into the things that make you feel like you can take a breath and sort of have a visionary moment, and not getting so caught up in the doingness of it. Like, oh, if I have a visionary moment, then how am I going to make it happen? We can get quite, I want to say, like, transactional about our dreams and our goals, meaning we have a dream and we're like, oh, but how am I going to make it happen? And then, well, if I can't make it happen, then I'm just not going to dream it. And we've been disappointed before. I've been disappointed many, many times. I still get disappointed. Things that I thought would be a certain way, that then it's like, what the heck? Like, this is not what I was expecting. That's not what I wanted. That's not what Sure, all the time. And I allow space for that, and I get it out of my system. Um, but when we've been, don't let those past disappointments become new barriers. Because if the way we're thinking and perceiving the world is shifting, just play with that for a moment. Just be like, oh, if that's the case, then I can make some new decisions. And that's pretty cool. That's a reset. It's a reset moment. Like, oh, I can actually make some new decisions. And then we begin to work with our mind, which I call our mind the delivery system for our soul. Then our mind can begin to work with new input, because we are consciously creating something new and not getting stuck as my sticker gets stuck on my coffee cup. Not getting stuck in the way we used to think about things. So that's a really cool experiment also to do over the weekend. Something else that can be really potent is to open up a document on your computer, on your phone, and capturing what is the big, bold vision for my life. What is my big, bold vision for my life? Stephen Forrest is one of the founders of evolutionary astrology. He is an incredible, incredible sage of a man. And I'm the branch of astrology that I practice is evolutionary astrology, which always asks us to go beyond. It's not like revelatory, like, oh, this is what's going to happen. Although, sure, we can with quite a bit of certainty predict certain things with astrology, and history has shown us so. But it's not about that. It's about tapping into the ways that we're co-creating with the energies and how they're moving our consciousness forward, how they're expanding our consciousness. So last year, Stephen did a training session where he was talking about that. And he said, that's the question to ask with this conjunction is, what is the big, bold vision for my life? And Jupiter can ask right there, like, okay, well, awesome. And where have you not believed that is possible? Or where do you get to shift your perspective around that being possible? Which brings me to another interesting point to consider, is that this is a time where you can, if there are any things goals, dreams, things that you've had stuck in your system for a very long time, maybe it's a time to reconsider them and let them go. Are you finding that you're caught in any like specific, let's say, goal, and you're like, wait, why do I want that? Do I really want that? Do I want that? Did someone else want that for me? And it could be something that you've been thinking of. Example, write a book. I think writing books is incredible. And if you want to write a book, please share it with the world. But let's say that one of us has that, like, oh, I want to write a book. 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 Think about it. Oh, okay. Why do I want to write a book? What is it about a book that feels like, is it because I want to share my message? Well, there's plenty of other ways to do that. Again, I'm not saying don't write your book. I'm saying consider the different options. Because then if all you have in your mind is that you're going to write that book, but it's not happening, and you're not sharing your voice, and then you're keeping all those messages that you're saving for that book without seeing the light of day, which then creates a crimp in your energy flow. And the crimp can show up in your life as anger, resentment, frustration, you know, a whole host of things that then compromise your energy and make you feel not great, and maybe even blame other people. Ooh, are we blaming other people for not doing the things we want to do? Again, circumstances happen, but are you blaming other people? That's a really juicy, I call these the Creatrix Ninja inquiries when I work with my clients. And I drop one that they're like, ooh. I'm like, yeah, this is a Creatrix Ninja moment. Like, big girl panties on. Are you blaming anybody for not achieving your dreams? It's not their fault. Again, circumstances happen, right? I'm not saying like, oh, there's a whole world of nuance out there. But it's a really powerful question, because we can get caught up in that and then just go, oh, well, yeah, that's why. And it's just not going to happen. Is it now? All right, now I'm dipping into, let's see, I'm probably going to be here for another 10 minutes. So, ladies who are online, if you have any other questions or comments, let's see, Tasha says, exploring reciprocity over transactional in many spaces. Yes, that's a lot of what we're healing. That's really coming up with the Aries North Node and Libra South Node, which again is another layer that we're working with, learning from, expanding from, is that shift in the ways that our relationships have become. It's a charged word, but manipulative. And it's not that you're like, oh, I want to manipulate somebody, but we're either projecting something onto somebody else, or we're expecting something from somebody else, and the connection and the energy between us isn't clear. And that's that reciprocity versus transactional in spaces. So the transaction of like, oh, I'm expecting this from you and you're expecting this from me. And if there's an imbalance there, it's also a really interesting thing to think about. So thank you for bringing that up. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. What else do I want to cut from here? Let's see. Let me take a look at my candle first, because I think I'm feeling pretty complete with it. Let me show you. Don't be afraid to put your face on it, because you're also honoring that which makes you you. I have some feathers. I have this, which is right here, right now, is the motto that my husband and I and our son always follow ever since we started. Well, about a year into him being diagnosed with ALS, he said that. We wrote it in a post on Instagram, and it stuck. And so that's right here, right now. It's, yeah, a potent way to live. Great things never came from comfort zones is one of my little stickers here. And boy, oh boy, is it true right now. And there's a distinction between pushing yourself to do something and having the willingness and the juiciness to leap into it. That's another really important point of discernment. Um, and maybe that's where we'll start to wrap up the conversation here as you work with your candle, your creative project, whatever rituals you decide to activate for yourself this weekend as you move about the world, is the discernment between pushing and wanting to make the thing happen and taking that that leap where you feel the butterflies in your stomach, you feel your legs shaking, and you're like, whew, am I ready? I don't feel ready. But remind yourself, but I'm here. I'm present. I'm here. And there's so much that we've been conditioned to think everything from, you're not enough, and all the stuff that goes with that, to what does success look like. And even if you've already recalibrated your understanding of success, go a little bit deeper. I'm doing that. Go a little bit deeper. This conjunction is also like this massive, and the work that Uranus has been doing in Taurus since 2018, May 2019. Notice how your life has changed. Of course, life in the world has changed a lot, but notice how your life has changed. I have some really precise markers that I'm like, whoa, of how my life has dramatically been like turned upside down since that moment in time. It's like this massive sift. It's like all these things, and you're just sifting. And what we're left with is the essence. It's the core of what really matters. What is essential about you, about your philosophy of life, about what you believe and how you feel right now. You don't have to come up with sort of the final, like, oh, this is who I am. You're evolving all the time. You're multifaceted. Just like Taylor Swift, you've gone through all these different eras. Acknowledge them all, celebrate them all, just be in the wonder of creating what's next for you, of reinventing yourself, of taking leaps in areas that it's a springboard. It's an absolute springboard to honor the parts of you that may have been dimmed before, and to take a deeper, the phrase that comes up is like to take a deeper like interest in you, which is kind of funny. Not funny, but it's like, oh, taking a like we often get so lost. We tuck ourselves back. We get lost in the cacophony of life. We just do. But imagine taking an interest in you. Like, oh, wow. Because you are that awesome. Like, you are that interesting. You're fun. You're eclectic. You're wise. You're beautiful. You're inspiring. You're magical. You're difficult. You're confusing. You're, angry. You're crazy. Like, yes. Holding all of the different aspects of who we are, but not like, it's so easy to put the things that we don't like or admire or feel good about ourselves at the forefront, and then let that dictate everything else. Imagine the radical act of actually looking at, even if you find the one thing, hopefully more, but one thing that you're like, wow, this is really, really special about me. Marvel at that. Just marvel at it. Pour water into it. Let it grow. Let it grow. Give it some sun. Give it some light. And see what happens. Okay. I think that's going to be our chat for today. Thank you for joining me on this meandering, magical, impromptu space. If you have any questions or comments, I'd love to, share them below. I'd love to see what's going on in your beautiful mind and heart and soul. And I'm holding space for all of us to really find the courage to radiate, the courage to be seen, the courage to claim the parts of us that are ready to be ignited, the courage to walk in the unknown, the courage to perceive the world through a new lens, and to weave the new stories that we want to see, to weave the new. We've got to weave the new by, like, again, looking up and finding those new threads to fold, to weave into the tapestry of what's already here. Um, and some of those threads are invisible right now. They're invisible. You don't know them, you don't see them. They're being woven in, and we have no idea, but they are being woven in for sure. Hold space for them. Awe and wonder and curiosity. Hold space for that as well. The mystery is all around us and within us. And yeah. All right. I'll leave it there. I'm excited to continue connecting with you and see what this beautiful new chapter holds for all of us. Um, all my love to those of you who are here live. Just stick around for a second. I'm going to stop the recording. But to anyone watching the replay, thank you for being here. Thank you for liking, subscribing, sharing, and all that good stuff. I'll see you around. Adios.